A woman sits in a room in the Prince's Palace of Monaco. She is 47 years old. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress at 25. She married a sovereign prince at 26. She has not appeared in a motion picture in 23 years. An American actress visiting the palace will later describe what she found. A princess who said the women of Monaco did not like her, who said she had to watch everything she said and everything she did because they were so critical. The princess cried during the conversation. The actress Lee Grant will recall it for decades. She was so lonely and so unhappy. Outside the palace windows, Monaco covers less than 1 square mile. It is the second smallest sovereign state on earth. She cannot leave it without being photographed. She once told a journalist that the idea of her life as a fairy tale was itself a fairy tale. In 1962, Alfred Hitchcock offered her the lead in Marnie. Reportedly $1 million plus a percentage of the gross. Monaco's citizens were appalled that their princess would play a psychotic kleptomaniac. She was forced to withdraw. The role went to Tippi Hedren. Grace Kelly never made another film. 5 years from this moment, she will be dead. Her 1971 Rover P6 will miss a turn on the D37 above Monaco and plunge 120 feet down a mountainside. Her 17-year-old daughter will be in the passenger seat. Neither will be wearing a seatbelt. But the woman in the palace is not the beginning of this story. She married into a family that seized this rock by deception in 1297 and has held it ever since. Through assassination, revolution, annexation, bankruptcy, and scandal. 728 years, 35 generations, the longest ruling family in European history, governing the smallest territory any dynasty has ever refused to surrender. Her eldest daughter Caroline will lose her second husband in a powerboat crash. He will be 30 years old. Her son, Albert, will not marry until the age of 53, and his bride will be photographed crying through the wedding ceremony. Her youngest daughter, Stephanie, will spend decades accused of causing the crash that killed her own mother. She was 17 at the time. She will say, "It was in 2002, not only did I go through the horrible trauma of losing my mother at a very young age, but I was beside her at the moment of the accident. Nobody can imagine how much I have suffered and still suffer. The House of Grimaldi has held this rock for 7 centuries. The people who live inside it keep breaking. What follows is the cost of not letting go. If you're new here, subscribing is the simplest way to support the channel. It's free and it helps us keep making these. The dynasty begins with a disguise. On the night of the 8th of January 1297, a Genoese exile named Francois Grimaldi approached the fortress gate atop the Rock of Monaco, dressed in the robes of a Franciscan monk. He was a Guelph partisan, expelled from Genoa during the civil wars between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. And the fortress was held by Ghibelline soldiers. Francois requested shelter. The guards admitted him. Once inside, he drew a sword concealed beneath the robes, signalled his armed followers, led by his cousin Rainier, Lord of Cagnes, and they overpowered the garrison. The only contemporary account comes from Guillaume Ventura, a spice merchant from Asti, writing sometime before his death in 1327. He recorded that Francois Grimaldi, nicknamed Malizia, the cunning, disguised in the habit of the friar miners, entered into the settlement of Monaco, killed the guards and committed numerous offences against the Genoese. The family's coat of arms, still mounted above the palace entrance today, depicts 2 monks brandishing swords. The motto reads Deo Juvante, with the help of God. Francois' marriage produced no children. He died in 1309. All modern Grimaldis descend from his cousin Rainier I, who became Admiral of France under Philip the Fair and won a naval victory at the Battle of Zierickzee in 1304. The Grimaldis lost Monaco just 4 years after taking it in 1301, and the rock changed hands repeatedly for over a century. Charles I recaptured it on the 12th of September 1331, and purchased the lordships of Menton in 1346 and Roquebrune in 1355. He provided crossbowmen to Philip VI of France at the Battle of Crécy. The permanent acquisition came only in 1419, when 3 Grimaldi brothers purchased Monaco outright from Queen Yolande of Aragon. The early rulers died at an extraordinary rate. Jean II, Lord of Monaco, and was murdered by his own brother Lucien on the night of the 10th of October, 1505, at the castle of Menton. Lucien justified the killing in a letter to the Duke of Savoy. He said John had been planning to sell Monaco to the Venetians and that he had remonstrated with him over the great wrong he was doing to his brothers and sisters. Lucien himself was stabbed to death on the 22nd of August, 1523, by his nephew Barthélemy Doria inside the prince's palace. The Monegasque populace rioted and expelled the assassins. After Lucien's murder, the family sought protection from Spain. The Treaty of Burgos and the Declaration of Tordesillas in 1524 placed Monaco under Emperor Charles V's protection, while affirming the principality was absolutely independent from any superior powers. And for over a century, a Spanish garrison occupied the rock. The arrangement ended when Honoré II, the first to use the title Prince of Monaco, formally recognised by Spain in 1633, grew resentful of the garrison's presence. He negotiated the Treaty of Péronne with Louis XIII of France, signed on the 14th of September, 1641. France would station 500 soldiers in Monaco at its own expense. In return, Honoré received the Duchy of Valentinois, the Marquisate of Beau, and an annual payment of 75,000 livres. On the night of the 17th of November, 1641, Honoré expelled the Spanish guards, reputedly after plying them with wine at a lavish banquet, and returned the Order of the Golden Fleece to Madrid, where he accumulated an art collection of over 700 paintings, including works by Titian, Dürer, Raphael, and Rubens. His own son, Hercule, never lived to rule. Hercule was assassinated on the 29th of November, 1604, stabbed in the narrow streets of Monaco-Ville, his body thrown into the sea. His 7-year-old son became Honoré II under Regency. The French Revolution nearly erased the dynasty entirely. On the 13th of January, 1793, a citizens' assembly in Monaco voted to depose Honoré III, who had reigned for nearly 60 years, the longest rule in Monaco's history. On the 14th of February, 1793, France annexed Monaco and renamed it Fort Hercule. In September, the family was arrested in Paris. Honoré III, age 72. His son, Honoré IV, age 35, Honoré IV's wife, Louise d'Aumont, and his 8-year-old grandson, Florestan. The family physician forged release documents for Louise and the child. The 2 older men remained imprisoned for approximately 13 months. The most devastating loss belonged to someone who married into this family, as Grace Kelly would a century and a half later. Marie-Thérèse de Choiseul-Stanville, wife of Honoré III's second son Joseph, was arrested in September 1793. She briefly escaped to a convent but was recaptured. She was guillotined on the 27th of July 1794 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She was 27 years old. One day later, one single day, Robespierre was arrested and the terror ended. Were her last words to fellow prisoners: "Be brave, my dear friends. Crime alone displays weakness." She was buried in a mass grave at Picpus Cemetery. Honoré III died on the 21st of March, 1795, in Paris, broken by imprisonment. The family did not recover Monaco until 1814 after Napoleon's fall, and when they did return, the Treaty of 1861 stripped them of Menton and Roquebrune, roughly 95% of their territory, in exchange for 4 million francs and recognition of Monaco's sovereignty. The Grimaldis were left governing a rock and a strip of coastline. They were sovereign. They were also bankrupt. Prince Charles III, who ruled from 1856 to 1889, authorised gambling as a financial measure of last resort. His mother, Princess Caroline, had pushed for the enabling law. The first casino opened on the 14th of December 1856 in a rented villa and failed immediately. Everything changed when François Blanc, the so-called magician of Homburg, took control of the Société des Bains de Mer, founded by sovereign order on the 2nd of April 1863, with initial capital of 15 million francs and a 50-year concession. Blanc had revolutionized German gambling by introducing the single zero roulette wheel in 1843. Among the early investors in the SBM were reportedly the Bishop of Monaco and Cardinal Pichi, the future Pope Leo XIII. On the 1st of June 1866, Charles III decreed that the plateau of Les Spélugues would be renamed Monte Carlo, Mount Charles, in his own honour. And by 1869, casino revenues were so large that Charles issued an ordinance on the 8th of February, abolishing all direct personal taxation for residents. That ordinance has never been reversed. 157 years later, Monaco still collects no income tax, no wealth tax, and no capital gains tax. The casino that Charles Garnier designed and was the architect of the Paris Opera opened on the 25th of January 1879 with Sarah Bernhardt performing on opening night. Monegasque citizens themselves are forbidden from gambling in the casino. The prohibition was an initiative of Princess Caroline on moral grounds. Charles III's grandson, Albert I, was born on the 13th of November 1848 and reigned from 1889 to 1922, and he conducted 28 oceanographic expeditions between 1885 and 1915, establishing 3,698 research stations aboard 4 successive vessels. He dredged to depths of 5,580 metres south of Madeira. He discovered the Princess Alice Bank off the Azores on the 9th of July 1896. He inaugurated the Oceanographic Museum of Monaco on the 29th of March 1910 and the Oceanographic Institute of Paris on the 23rd of January 1911. His personal life produced the same pattern the dynasty had repeated for centuries. His first wife, Lady Mary Victoria Douglas Hamilton, fled Monaco within a year, taking their infant son, Louis. The marriage was annulled on the 3rd of January 1880. His second wife, Alice Heine, born on the 10th of February 1857 in New Orleans, making her the first American-born princess consort of a European sovereign, brought a $6 million dowry and transformed Monaco into a cultural capital, attracting Diaghilev's ballets Russes and building the opera season. But Albert was at sea for months at a time, and Alice began a relationship with the composer Isidore de Lara. In a documented incident at the Opera de Monte Carlo, Albert publicly slapped Alice in full view of the audience. They separated judicially on the 30th of May, 1902, and never reconciled. Marcel Proust used Alice as the model for the Princesse de Luxembourg in Search of Lost Time. Albert died on the 26th of June, 1922, in Paris, at 73. His son, and Louis II had been raised in Germany by his estranged mother and stepfather. He did not see his father until the age of 11. He enrolled at the military academy of Saint-Cyr and requested posting to the French Foreign Legion in North Africa, effectively fleeing Monaco. While stationed in Algeria, he fell in love with Marie-Juliette Louvet, a cabaret singer. Albert I refused to allow the marriage. Their daughter, Charlotte Louise Juliette, was born on the 30th of September 1898 in Constantine, Algeria. She was illegitimate. She had no claim to the throne. She was not supposed to exist inside the dynasty at all. But without Charlotte, the throne would pass to Louis's cousin Wilhelm, the second Duke of Urach, a German nobleman. During the First World War, said the prospect of a German prince on Monaco's throne was unacceptable to France. Albert I engineered a legal manoeuvre. On the 30th of October 1918, a new ordinance modified Monaco's civil code to permit adoption of an heir with succession rights. On the 16th of May 1919, Louis formally adopted Charlotte. She became Princess Charlotte, Duchess of Valentinois, with full succession rights. A woman born illegitimate in an Algerian garrison town was now heir to a 700-year-old throne. Charlotte married Count Pierre de Polignac, who took the Grimaldi name in civil and religious ceremonies on the 18th and 19th of March 1920. The marriage produced 2 children, Princess Antoinette on the 28th of December 1920 and Prince Rainier on the 31st of May 1923. But the marriage was deeply unhappy. They separated on the 20th of March 1930 and divorced by ordinance of Louis II on the 18th of February 1933. Charlotte declared, "I am the most unhappy woman in the world. I have been given everything material, but I never had the opportunity to love and marry the man of my free choice." On the 30th of May 1944, the day before Rainier's 21st birthday, Charlotte renounced her succession rights. She moved to the Grimaldi estate of Château de Marchais, took up with a French jewel thief nicknamed René Lacan, and turned the estate into a rehabilitation centre for ex-convicts. She died on the 16th of November 1977 in Paris. She was 79. Louis II married French actress Ghislaine Domonget in June of 1946 and died on the 9th of May 1949 at the Prince's Palace. He was 78. Rainier Louis-Henri Maxence Bertrand Grimaldi was born at the Prince's Palace on the 31st of May 1923, the first prince born in Monaco since 1758. His parents' divorce when he was 6 shaped everything that followed. Educated at Stowe School in England, Le Rosey in Switzerland, and the University of Montpellier, he served in the Free French Army from September 1944 and earned the Croix de Guerre in Alsace. When he ascended the throne on the 9th of May 1949, Monaco's treasury was practically empty. The Monte Carlo casino had suffered a 75% operating loss and a 90% decline in visitors from pre-war levels. His sister, Princess Antoinette, conspired with her lover, Jean-Charles Ray, to depose Rainier and install herself as regent. She allegedly sabotaged his decade-long relationship with actress Gisèle Pascal by spreading false rumours that Pascal was infertile. Then came Aristotle Onassis. Beginning in 1953, the Greek shipping magnate purchased shares in the Société des Bains de Mer through 48 front companies registered in Panama, circumventing a 10,000-share limit per individual holder. He acquired a 52% controlling stake for approximately $1.5 million, gaining control of the Monte Carlo Casino, the Hôtel de Paris, the Monaco Yacht Club, and roughly 1/3 of Monaco's total acreage. Rainier initially welcomed the investment, but their visions diverged. Onassis wanted Monaco to remain an exclusive enclave for the ultra-wealthy. Rainier wanted broader development. He began calling Monte Carlo by a different name, Monte Greco. In June of 1966, Rainier approved the creation of 600,000 new SBM shares to be held permanently by the state, diluting Onassis' stake from 52% to under 1/3. Onassis challenged this in Monaco's Supreme Court. In March of 1967, the court ruled against him. Onassis sold his remaining holdings for $9.5 million and left the principality. His parting words, "We were gypped," and "I will never forget or forgive what he has done to me." Where Rainier had outmaneuvered one of the richest men in the world using the same weapon the Grimaldis had used for 7 centuries. The laws of a country small enough to rewrite overnight. 700 years of holding a rock through deception assassination, legal maneuvers, and sheer stubbornness. Of all the survival strategies the Grimaldis used, which one surprised you most? Let me know in the comments. But Rainier still had a constitutional problem. Under the Franco-Monegasque Treaty of 1918, if the Grimaldi line died out, Monaco would revert to France. He was 32 years old, unmarried, and had no heir. The principality needed a marriage. It needed legitimacy, international visibility, and children. What it received was the most famous bride of the 20th century. And Grace Patricia Kelly met Rainier III on the 6th of May 1955 during the Cannes Film Festival. The meeting was arranged by Pierre Galante, editor of Paris Match, and his wife, the actress Olivia de Havilland. A workers' strike had cut the electricity in Cannes. Grace could not use a hairdryer. She put flowers in her still wet hair. At the palace, Rainier gave her a tour that included his private zoo. De Havilland later said Grace returned in a state of enchantment. They corresponded for months. Rainier proposed over Christmas 1955 at the Kelly family home in East Falls, Philadelphia, presenting a 10.47-carat emerald-cut diamond ring from Cartier. The engagement was announced on the 5th of January 1956. The Kelly family was required to pay a $2 million dowry to the House of Grimaldi, equivalent to approximately $20 million today. Grace's father, John B. Kelly Sr., a self-made millionaire and triple Olympic gold medalist in rowing, was furious. He said, "My daughter Grace doesn't have to pay anyone to marry her. Half the dowry came from Grace's own Hollywood earnings. Half came from her inheritance." The civil ceremony took place on the 18th of April 1956 in the palace throne room before 80 guests. The religious ceremony followed on the 19th of April at St. Nicholas Cathedral before approximately 600 guests. Grace wore a gown designed by Helen Rose of MGM, 36 seamstresses, 6 weeks of work, 125-year-old Brussels lace, thousands of hand-sewn pearls, and a 90-yard veil. Over 30 million people watched the broadcast. It was called the Wedding of the Century. Rainier later said, "It wasn't fun, and in the middle of the turmoil, Grace kept saying, 'Maybe we should run off to a small chapel somewhere in the mountains and finish getting married there. I wish we had.' 3 children were born at the Prince's Palace. Princess Caroline Louise Marguerite on the 23rd of January 1957. Prince Albert Alexandre Louis Pierre on the 14th of March 1958. Princess Stephanie Marie Elizabeth on the 1st of February 1965. Grace's unhappiness inside the palace is documented from multiple sources across decades. She told one interviewer, "I certainly don't think of my life as a fairy tale." And she told another, "I hated Hollywood. It's a town without pity. Only success counts." But she never went back. Her friend Joan Dale wrote that Grace felt somewhat like a prisoner in a gilded cage behind the palace walls. Rainier himself acknowledged what the marriage had cost her. He said, "It would have been better if she had spent some time here with her parents before we married. Looking back, I was also probably too impatient that she should fit in and feel at ease." On Monday, the 13th of September 1982, at approximately 9:30 in the morning, Grace was driving the 1971 Rover P6 3500 from the family's country estate at Rock Aigle, down the D37, the Route de la Turbie, toward Monaco. Her 17-year-old daughter Stephanie sat beside her. The back seat was piled with dresses and hat boxes, and is leaving no room for the chauffeur. Neither wore a seatbelt. A witness 50 yards behind the car saw it swerving across both lanes. Then it shot forward. No brake lights. Princess Caroline later relayed what Stephanie told her. "Mommy kept saying, 'I can't stop. The brakes don't work. I can't stop.'" Stephanie said her mother was in a complete panic. Stephanie grabbed the handbrake. It would not stop the car. The rover missed a 150-degree hairpin turn, crashed through a small retaining wall, and plunged approximately 120 feet down the mountainside, rolling through trees and brush before coming to rest against a wall. Doctors determined Grace had suffered 2 brain hemorrhages. The first, a minor stroke, occurred before the crash and caused it. The second, far more severe, occurred on impact. She lay in a coma for approximately 24 hours. On the 14th of September 1982, at approximately 10:35 in the evening, Grace Patricia Kelly, Princess of Monaco, was pronounced dead after Rainier made the decision to remove life support, with Caroline and Albert's agreement. She was 52 years old. Stephanie, who suffered a hairline fracture of the 7th cervical vertebra, was not told of her mother's death for 2 days. British Leyland engineers found no mechanical fault with the car. The rover was later crushed into a cube, taken out to sea and sunk in the Mediterranean. The funeral was held on the 18th of September 1982 at St. Nicholas Cathedral, the same building where she had married 26 years before. Approximately 100 million people watched the broadcast. James Stewart delivered the eulogy. Rainier wept throughout. He never remarried. He smoked 60 cigarettes a day, he said. In 1983, she was always present and ready to do things either with me or for me if I couldn't do them. Let's say the change is that we worked as a team and the team has been split up. He died on the 6th of April 2005 at 6:35 in the morning of heart, lung and kidney failure. He was 81 years old. He was buried beside Grace in the cathedral crypt. Princess Caroline married 3 times. The first was Philippe Junot, a Parisian banker, on the 28th of June 1978. She was 21. He was 38. They divorced on the 9th of October 1980. And the second was Stefano Casiraghi, an Italian industrialist, on the 29th of December 1983. She was 3 months pregnant. The Catholic annulment of her first marriage was not granted until June of 1992. On the 3rd of October 1990, Casiraghi was competing in the UIM Class 1 Offshore World Powerboat Championship in waters off the coast of Monaco. He was the throttle man in a 42-foot catamaran named Pinot di Pinot. The boat was travelling at approximately 150 kilometers per hour when it struck a large wave and flipped. The co-pilot, Patrice Innocenti, was thrown clear and survived. Casiraghi remained trapped beneath the capsized hull. He was killed virtually on impact. He was 30 years old. Caroline was in Paris. She returned to Monaco wearing black. And his death led to mandatory closed cockpit safety regulations in offshore powerboat racing. Caroline married Ernst August, Prince of Hanover, on the 23rd of January 1999, her 42nd birthday. They have a daughter, Princess Alexandra of Hanover, born on the 20th of July 1999. They reportedly separated around 2009 but remain legally married. Caroline has 4 children and 8 grandchildren. She is 69 years old. Prince Albert II remained unmarried for decades, a constitutional problem the Principality could not afford to ignore. He competed in 5 Winter Olympic Games as a bobsledder between 1988 and 2002. He succeeded his father automatically on the 6th of April 2005, with formal investiture on the 12th of July and enthronement on the 19th of November. Before his marriage, Albert acknowledged 2 children born outside wedlock. Yasmin Grace Grimaldi was born on the 4th of March 1992 in Palm Springs, California, to Tamara Rotolo, a waitress he had met on the Côte d'Azur the previous summer. Albert's name appeared on the birth certificate, but he did not publicly acknowledge her until the 1st of June 2006, following DNA testing. Alexandra Grimaldi Coste was born on the 24th of August 2003 to Nicole Coste, a former Air France flight attendant from Togo. Albert acknowledged him on the 6th of July 2005, days before his formal investiture as sovereign prince. Neither child is in the line of succession. Da Albert met Charlene Wittstock, a South African Olympic swimmer, at the Mare Nostrum International Swimming Meet in Monaco in 2000. They married in a civil ceremony on the 1st of July, 2011, and a religious ceremony on the 2nd of July. The wedding was engulfed in reports that Charlene had attempted to flee Monaco 3 times before the ceremony. French media reported that her passport had been confiscated after she booked a one-way ticket to South Africa. The palace dismissed the reports as ugly rumours. At the religious ceremony, Charlene was photographed crying openly. She later offered her explanation. Everything was just so overwhelming, and there were all the mixed emotions because of the rumours, and obviously the tension built up, and I burst into tears. She told another outlet. There was absolutely no truth to the runaway bride rumours. Their twins were born on the 10th of December, 2014. Princess Gabriella, Countess of Carladès, arrived first. Prince Jacques, hereditary prince, and Marquis des Beaux arrived 2 minutes later. Despite being born second, Jacques is heir apparent under Monaco's male preference primogeniture. In mid-May of 2021, Charlene travelled to South Africa for conservation work and developed a severe ear, nose and throat infection. She could not return to Monaco for over 6 months. Albert told People magazine in September she didn't leave Monaco in a huff. She returned on the 8th of November 2021. But 11 days later entered a treatment facility outside Monaco for what Albert described as profound exhaustion, both emotional and physical. She returned to Monaco in the first week of March 2022. She has said, people are very quick to say, "Oh, why isn't she smiling in the photos?" Well, sometimes it's hard to smile. They don't know what's going on in the background. Princess Stephanie was 17 years old when the rover went off the D-37. She suffered a fractured cervical vertebra and was not told of her mother's death for 2 days. For decades, tabloids whispered that she had been driving. No official investigation ever supported the claim. Stephanie addressed it directly in Paris Match in 2002. She said, "Everybody looks at you and you know they're thinking, how come she's still around and Grace is dead?" No one ever said it to me like that, but I knew that's what they were thinking. I needed my mother a lot when I lost her, and my dad was so lost without her. I felt so alone. Her rebellion was thorough. She released the single Irresistible in 1986. It sold over 2 million copies. She married Daniel Ducrouet, a palace bodyguard and former fishmonger from Beausoleil, on the 1st of July 1995. They already had 2 children, Louis, born the 26th of November 1992, and Pauline, born the 4th of May 1994. On the 5th of August 1996, paparazzi photographed Ducrouet in a sexual encounter at a poolside near Nice, with a woman identified in the press as a former Miss Bare Breasts of Belgium. And the photographs, reportedly staged, were published across European tabloids. Stephanie filed for divorce on the 16th of September 1996. It was finalised on the 4th of October. Ducrouet admitted publicly, "I have betrayed my wife, I have betrayed her love, and I have betrayed my children." Stephanie had a 3rd child, Camille Marie Kelly Gottlieb, born the 15th of July 1998, with palace bodyguard Jean-Raymond Gottlieb. In 2001, she moved her 3 children into a circus caravan travelling with Switzerland's Circus Knie, having become involved with the married elephant trainer Franco Knie. She married Portuguese circus acrobat Adans Lopes Perez on the 12th of September 2003. They divorced on the 24th of November 2004. On 14 months of marriage. She is 61 years old. The legend of the Grimaldi curse traces to after the Battle of Zierikzee in 1304. In the most common version, Rainier I kidnapped a Flemish woman after the battle and assaulted her. She cursed him and every Grimaldi who would follow. Never will a Grimaldi find true happiness in marriage. No medieval primary source documenting the curse has ever been located. The legend circulated as Monegasque folklore for centuries but became an international sensation after Grace Kelly's death. The evidence cited by those who believe it is extensive. Jean II murdered by his brother. Lucien was stabbed by his nephew. Hercule is assassinated and thrown into the sea. Albert I's 2 marriages ending in desertion and public violence. Charlotte declares herself the most unhappy woman in the world. Grace died at 52 on a mountain road. Casiraghi died at 30 in a powerboat. Caroline's 3 marriages, Stephanie's marriages and scandals, Albert's decades of bachelorhood, Charlene's tears. Historians treat the pattern as selection bias, amplified by 7 centuries of material and a modern media apparatus that sells tragedy. The Grimaldis have also known periods of stability, genuine affection, and institutional success, but the pattern does not require belief in the supernatural to register its weight. It only requires counting. Prince Albert II is 67 years old. On the 19th of July 2025, he celebrated 20 years on the throne with a ceremony at the Place du Palais. The full extended family in attendance. He remains active in environmental causes through the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation, established in 2006, which has invested approximately $99 million in conservation. Princess Charlene has maintained regular public appearances since her return in 2022. Monaco covers 2.08 square kilometres, following the completion of the Mariterra land reclamation project, inaugurated on the 4th of December 2024, which added 6 hectares to the Principality's coastline. As of the 2024 census, 38,423 people reside in Monaco. 9,262 are Monegasque citizens, 24% of the total population. 145 nationalities are represented. There is no personal income tax, a policy unchanged since 1869. Roughly 1/3 of residents are millionaires, the highest concentration on Earth. The SBM's market capitalisation stands at approximately €3.25 billion. The Monegasque state holds 64% of shares. Prince Albert personally owns approximately 1/4 of Monaco's total land area. His net worth is estimated between $1 and $2 billion. The Palais Princier, originally built as a Genoese fortress in 1191, sits atop the 62-metre limestone rock. It features a horseshoe staircase of Carrara marble, the Gallery of Hercules with 16th-century frescoes, and a cistern built after the 1506 siege capable of supplying water for 2 years. Alba has led a major restoration since 2015, recovering over 600 square metres of Renaissance frescoes. The state apartments reopened to the public on the 30th of March, 2026. Prince Jacques is 11 years old. He is heir apparent to the throne of Monaco. He practices taekwondo, tennis, and swimming. His sister, Princess Gabriella, born 2 minutes before him, will never rule because Monaco's succession law, revised in 2002, still favours male heirs. Jacques is the 35th generation of a family that has held a limestone rock since the night a man in a monk's robe asked to be let inside. The coat of arms still hangs above the palace gate. 2 monks, 2 swords, Deo Juvante. The Grimaldis have endured the collapse of Guelph Genoa, the Spanish Empire, the French Revolution, 2 world wars, bankruptcy, tabloid media, and the deaths of the people they married. They hold 2 square kilometres. They have held it for 728 years. When reporters suggested to Rainier, after Grace's death, that Monaco could not endure without her, he responded, "The princess was a great asset and a formidable ambassadress for the country. Anyone would prefer her smile to mine. But they must have forgotten that the principality has existed for 800 years. It has existed for longer now. The boy who will inherit it plays sports in a palace that began as a stolen fortress. He carries the name of the man who dressed as a monk to take it.